Today we explore the rise of Nitto Santapaola, one of the most powerful mafia bosses in Sicily. Watch as we unravel decades of secrecy, corruption, and violence that shaped Catania's criminal empire. For decades, this chapter of Catania's past lay buried under a shroud of silence. The darker side of the city was masked not only by the criminal underworld, but also by certain officials within the state who blatantly denied the existence of the Mafia in Catania. Even in the face of clear and insightful reports from General Carlo Alberto Dalla Chiesa, who boldly discussed the presence of organized crime in an interview with journalist Giorgio Bacca, the response from authorities was dismissive. The painful echoes of denial lingered in the infamous words of Catania's prefect Francesco Abbatelli, who downplayed the Mafia's reach by stating that the Mafia is a Palermo problem. This sentiment was echoed throughout the highest echelons of the city's institutions during the 1980s. During that era, there was no hesitation among influential figures, whether they were politicians, administrators, or other high-ranking officials, to publicly associate with Nitto Santapaola, the notorious head of the Catanese Mafia. They attended dinners with him, posed for photographs at various inaugurations, and openly socialized with the man who was a prominent leader within Cosa Nostra. When these associations came under scrutiny, those involved often resorted to the excuse of ignorance, claiming they had no knowledge of Santapaola's true identity and criminal background. But the reality may have been that it was more convenient to remain in the dark, to turn a blind eye to the escalating criminal empire right under their noses. The recent investigation, codenamed Samuel, led by the ROS and the Anti-Mafia Division of Catania's Public Prosecutor's Office, revealed the extent of Santapaola's long-standing criminal enterprises. The operation, culminating in the seizure of his hidden assets, shed light on the origins of these illicit riches. According to the findings, the wealth amassed by Santapaola and other top mafia figures dates back to their unlawful activities in the 1970s. Yet, the roots of the Cosa Nostra's influence in the shadow of Mount Etna stretch back much further, deeply embedded in the history of the region. In 1925, the arrival of the Tagliavia family from Palermo marked a turning point in Catania's criminal history. The Tagliavias had come with a clear goal: to profit from the lucrative world of illegal gambling. However, establishing their operations in Catania required more than just ambition; they needed local connections. To solidify their position, they initiated a series of mafia baptisms where several Catanian figures were inducted as the men of honor. Among these new recruits were prominent individuals like Giuseppe Indelicato and Agostino Florio. At that time, the well-known Catanian mafioso, Antonino Seta, who was already pungido, sworn into the Mafia, and recognized by the Palermo Mafia circles, was serving time in prison. But once he was released, he took up a significant role, becoming the first official representative of the Cosa Nostra family in Catania. Seta's story would take an unexpected turn, with him eventually vanishing from the criminal scene. Rumors circulated about a period spent in Tunisia, but his ultimate fate remained shrouded in mystery, with many suspecting he fell victim to a lupera bianca, a mafia killing where the body is never found. Following his disappearance, another Seta, Luigi, stepped into the leadership role, continuing the family's mafia legacy. Decades later, this line would find new life in the form of Giuseppe Calderone, also known as Pipo, a prominent mafia figure in the 1960s who carried the bloodline of the Seta family. However, the gap between the 1920s and the 1960s is marked by crucial events that shaped the destiny of Catania's underworld. The 1950s saw the first significant internal conflict within the Catanese branch of Cosa Nostra. This tension arose over the selection of the Capo Supremo, supreme leader, leading to frictions that ultimately crowned Vincenzo Palermo, an experienced mafioso known for his single arm. His driver during this time was Salvatore Santapaola, the brother of Nitto Santapaola, who was already a man of honor back then. Little did anyone foresee that the Santapaola surname would eventually rise to dominate the mafia hierarchy, with Nitto Santapaola emerging as one of the most powerful figures in the organization. Despite numerous efforts to unseat them, the Santapaola name would cling to power and become synonymous with Catania's Mafia. The year 1962 stands out as a pivotal moment in Catania's criminal history. Giuseppe Calderone, often referred to as Pipo Conarazzo di Argento due to his vocal cord issue, was not only a respected man of honor but also held the strategic position of consigliere. He was part of an inner circle that included influential figures like Francesco Indelicato and Agostino Florio, known as Tino e Vapu. At this time, Orazio Nicotera served as the family's representative, with Salvatore Torrisi as his deputy. The provincial representative was Giuseppe Indelicato, and his second-in-command was Salvatore Ferrera, nicknamed Ucavadazzu. The Ferrera family would soon become a critical name in the Mafia's organizational chart, with connections extending to both the Santapaola and Ercolano clans. The three families were intertwined not just by business but through blood, as three Ferrera brothers would marry three sisters from the D'Emanuele family. This union marked the beginning of a powerful Mafia lineage. In 1962, Antonino Calderone was inducted as a man of honor within Cosa Nostra. He was the younger brother of Pipo Calderone, who would later become known as the Basetta of Catania for his crucial role in exposing the Mafia's secrets. Antonino's cooperation helped to dismantle the long-standing myth that the Mafia was solely a Palermo phenomenon, revealing the true extent of Cosa Nostra's influence in Catania as well. That same ceremony saw the initiation of 8 other individuals, including prominent figures like Nitto Santapaola, his brother Natale, their cousin Francesco Ferrera, Natale Ercolano, Pipo's brother, Giuseppe Russo, and Pipo Ferlito. Pipo Ferlito was the uncle of Alfio Ferlito, who would later play a significant role in the turbulent world of the Catanian Mafia. Nitto Santapaola, who initially started as a mere foot soldier in Cosa Nostra, quickly gained the favor of Giuseppe Calderone. His rise was swift, and between 1966 and 1967, Santapaola was appointed as capo decina, or head of a mafia unit, replacing 2 older mafiosi. During this period, other significant figures such as Francesco Ferrera, Francesco Mangin, Salvatore Marchesi, and Mimmo Condarelli were also inducted into the organization, strengthening the ranks of the Catanian Mafia. As the 1970s unfolded, Benedetto Santapaola, also known as Nitto, began to pursue a new approach that Antonino Calderone would later call the Corleonese strategy. This strategy led him to form a strategic alliance with Toto Riina, who would go on to recognize Santapaola as the head of Catania's criminal operations. At this time, both Palermo and Catania were experiencing parallel mafia upheavals, culminating in what was essentially a mafia coup d'état. This power shift was a turning point, reshaping the internal dynamics of the Sicilian mafia. In the early 1970s, Catania was a hotbed of criminal activity, filled with robbers, smugglers, and thieves. The streets saw their first incidents of kneecapping, gunfights, and brazen shootings. Nitto Santapaola, frustrated by the chaos caused by local malandrini, petty criminals, decided to wage war against these unruly elements. However, it was not an equal fight. The Catanian Cosa Nostra could only muster about 35 men of honor, while on the other side stood an organized and formidable force, the Cursoti. To bolster their strength, the Mafia inducted 5 individuals renowned for their prowess with weapons. Among them were Alfio Ferlito, Salvatore Lanzafame, and Salvatore Pilera, also known as Turi Caccitti. These men would soon become some of Giuseppe Calderone's most trusted allies. Despite his reservations, Pipo Calderone found himself embroiled in the escalating conflict with the Cursoti. He did not initially support a full-scale war, but once events began to unfold, he had no choice but to continue. The struggle created a series of circumstances that isolated Pipo Calderone, leaving him increasingly vulnerable as the violence wore on. Even in these challenging times, however, his closest circle of loyal men remained steadfast, never wavering in their allegiance. Tensions in Catania reached a breaking point in 1977. During a meeting held at the villa of Prince Vanni Calvello, a crucial decision was made by Michele Greco, one of the most powerful mafia figures of the time. Greco, often referred to as the Pope within the Mafia, decided to dissolve the Catanian Mafia family and place it under a commission's control. a move that highlighted the chaos and power struggles within the organization. He appointed 3 interim leaders, or regents, to manage the family: Giuseppe Calderone, Nitto Santapaola, and Tino Florio, known as Uvapu. This restructuring was intended to stabilize the Catanian Mafia's leadership amid rising internal conflict. However, the delicate balance would soon be shattered. On September 8, 1979, Giuseppe Calderone, also known as Pipo Conarazzo di Argento due to his distinctive voice, was ambushed and murdered in ACI Castello. At the time of the attack, he was accompanied by Salvatore Lanzafame, who was injured but survived. Calderone's assassination marked a turning point that would drastically reshape the hierarchy and power dynamics within the Cosa Nostra in Catania. Following Calderone's death, Nitto Santapaola emerged as the new head of the Catanian Mafia family. He assumed the role of representative, while his trusted ally Francesco Mangin, also known as Cesare Ferraro, became his deputy. Salvatore Ferrera was appointed as the provincial representative, with Orazio Nicotera serving as the vice-provincial representative. The new leadership also included influential advisors like Carletto Campanella and Pasquale Condarelli, though one position remained vacant for Franco Romeo, who was incarcerated at the time. Tragically, Romeo would be murdered a few years later, and in his home, authorities discovered photographs that would become iconic symbols of Catania's mafia bourgeoisie, revealing the deep connections between organized crime and the city's elite. With his rise to power, Nitto Santapaola launched a dual strategy to consolidate his influence. On the one hand, he employed military tactics to eliminate criminal rivals, including those who had been loyal to Pipo Calderone. On the other, he pursued a diplomatic approach by forging alliances with key figures in Catanian business and political circles. This two-pronged strategy allowed him to build a formidable criminal empire over the following years. Santapaola's reign was marked by a series of brutal killings and high-profile murders that left an indelible mark on Catania's history. One of the most significant incidents occurred on June 6, 1981, during a shootout on Viale delle Olimpiadi, which sent shockwaves through the city. Even more infamous was the massacre on Via dell'Iris on April 26, 1982, a bloody episode that underscored the escalating violence. In the months that followed, the Mafia's reach extended even to Palermo, where Alfio Ferlito was murdered. During this period, Nitto Santapaola operated with apparent impunity. He moved freely around Catania, projecting an image of strength and authority. His influence was so substantial that he could comfortably negotiate with politicians and businessmen, positioning himself not only as a criminal leader but also as a power broker. However, his fortunes changed dramatically after he was implicated in the murder of General Carlo Alberto Dalla Chiesa, the anti-mafia prefect of Palermo. Facing an arrest warrant for this high-profile assassination, Santapaola went into hiding, effectively becoming a ghost. His fugitive life would last until 1993, when he was finally captured, bringing an end to one era of the Catanian Mafia while heralding the beginning of a new chapter. Yet, the legacy of Nitto Santapaola continued to echo through the years, with his name resurfacing in various investigations even decades later. His influence remains a significant reference point in the history of Cosa Nostra in Catania, shaping the criminal landscape long after his fall from power.